I heard you were just talking a little bit of smack about me.
Efficiency differential between a horn system and a transmission line system. I was like, amazing, you're hired.
I had
felt
nothing.
that, man. I really did.
Nothing.
I felt
on
that.
my hands. No, I had nothing that was shown to me. Sometimes you have to back them into a corner
You do.
to
Yeah,
get
you
an
gotta
actual answer that's worthwhile getting.
beat it out of them.
Otherwise, yeah, you got to beat it out of them. Okay, welcome to the 1-Bit Podcast. So this is our first episode. We have Bennet Meier here from Meier Werks. And I did a video on the speakers behind him, which was a collaboration, between him and I. And today I want to introduce you to the CEO, the mastermind behind the speakers, and answer some of your questions as well, and just go over what he's about. So, but before I start, 1-Bit is actually a co-hosted show, podcast. So I always have a co-host with me, but he's not here for the first episode. What a guy. I'll keep it a surprise as to his identity so that you guys are more interested in watching the next video to find out who he is. But a lot of he's a guest, but a lot of you will be very much familiar with this person. I'll give you 2 truths and 1 lie, and you can guess in the comments who this person is. He's bald. He is a friend of mine that I've known for a very long time.
Still want to go to Aspen? Oh yeah!
But have actually not met in person. And 3, And 3, he likes...
Grouch.
Huh?
He's a grouch.
Yeah, he's grumpy. He's a grumpy guy. Very grumpy guy.
Sea lions, sharks and minnows, sink the summer.
Oh, I don't know about very grumpy, but a big grumpy guy. Oh, speaking of the devil.
Great. So, I heard you were just talking a little bit of smack about me.
Yes, absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, let me explain something. The reason why I'm grumpy is because somebody that I consider to be a friend, who's supposed to be a co-host with me, starts things off by picking on something genetic that I can't even help. But you know what? It's all good, man. We all have our thing. I mean, some of us are 30 years old and we have the body of a twink. I mean, I don't judge. So, anyways, look, I just wanted to say that I see you, and but I don't really have time to chat with you boys right now because I have a date with a package of Oreos. So, you guys can go back to promoting whatever expensive speakers it is you're selling right now. So, all right.
All right.
Have a good one.
Ciao.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Bye.
Yeah, so he's a character.
Definitely.
And you'll see him on the next episode. And I made a video, as I said, about the speakers behind him. This was a long journey. So I'm just here to talk to him because he wasn't in the video, so you guys get to see him, his beautiful face, and talk about some of the questions, because we printed out actually some of the questions and concerns, or I asked you to. So I haven't seen them yet, but he will answer some of the concerns that people have left in the comment section, and we'll just go over some of the story behind it. How did this happen? How do I know this guy? And all this kind of stuff. And I guess we'll start with that, right?
Yeah,
so
sounds good.
When was the first time that I met you?
Oh gosh. We met at Expona. Are you talking face to face?
No, I think first point of contact.
First point of contact was an email.
Yeah.
I think an email way back in 2022, 2023.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, a while ago. And I had reached out I was just really interested in putting together a 2-way system.
Yeah.
And I think it was like dual concentric at the time or something like that.
Nah, it wasn't even dual concentric.
It was just a 2-way?
It was like a 2-way standard bookshelf speaker.
That's right.
And your thing was like recycled aluminum.
That's right. Environmentally friendly, which is
right.
still a big focus. Environmentally friendly, but direct radiating, bass reflex. That's right. And because of you and our progression, as we started talking, it really completely reshaped how this company wants to go after this market. So I was really grateful for that.
Yeah. So he came in looking to do a 2-way design, and then eventually at Expona you approached me when I was airing the CSS Typhons.
Yeah, jumped out at you from a corner.
Yeah. I still remember I did a private demo.
Who is this guy?
I did a private demo. I called my Patreons and people that were interested, and the room was really full. And I was very nervous.
Great turnout.
Yeah, and I was doing a little sound demo / presentation, and I saw this guy just with googly eyes looking up. I mean, like, and hearing every word I say, I was like, oh God, this guy's making me nervous.
And then I walked in. I don't know who that was, but
yeah. And then you approached me for lunch the next day. And then you laid out your plans. I just vibed with your enthusiasm, if anything. And I was like, you know what, let's give him Mission Impossible. I was like, so we're not doing a dual concentric design if you want to work with me, because dual concentric design, I love dual concentric designs, as you guys know, but for design work, we have Andrew Jones. We have to think about the market. I didn't want to compete with Andrew Jones. He's knocking out dual concentric designs, and he has been for a very long time. So for me to compete with that, I'm like, yeah, it's not unique enough, if you know what I mean. I didn't have an angle to where I can make it unique enough. And so I was like, you know what, let me, I have, like I said before, with the Typhon project, I have a lot of like past ideas that never came to fruition because, I don't have the materials. I don't have the, I don't run a speaker company, right? A manufacturing plant. So if someone's interested in a design, they reach out to me. I kind of give them kind of, some, design choices that I had thought about. So I basically gave him the idea of using a horn lens. So basically a waveguide for the horn. Otherwise, this horn gets really big, right? So the idea is to have a reasonable size while having good dispersion pattern. And I'm not sure if I told you to do a transmission line, but that was a weird...
the opposite.
That was a crazy choice.
Don't do a transmission line.
Yeah, and then he decided to do a transmission line. So I kind of give him like Mission Impossible because there's not much material on the lens itself in terms of like the resources out there to show what it does and exactly how it does. But from my experience in the past, I've measured some speakers that have similar lenses, and I just found that it actually has great impact on the dispersion pattern.
They work.
So I was like, you know what? And the main concern back then was the tolerance, right? We didn't have the machinery that we do today. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? With today's machinery, some crazy guy would be willing to do this. And then he goes silent for like months after Expona. I'm like, yep, another guy kicked the curb.
Bites the dust.
Bites the dust, right? And then he comes back and he's like, I got something. He starts sending me photos and data. And I'm like, look at that. Look at that. He's next thing I know, he's 3D printed a whole prototype with transmission line. And if you haven't watched that video because it'll make more sense of what we're talking about here. And yeah, so that's kind of like where we're at. And that was like almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, just kind of turning the 2-year mark now.
Yeah. And then so that's kind of where we're at. He brought a pair, and we got to hear it very roughly, and I was impressed. I was like, wow, that actually sounds really good for a prototype. I actually have to say this. I've never heard a prototype sound this good, right? Awesome. So I was like, we got something. It's not just that it sounds good and linear. It's just that it sounds, how do I say it, unique. Yeah. And I like that. The fact that it's unique, right? Because it's not something widely in the market. And we talked about this before. Even if a speaker measures flat, or measures great, they sound different. There's no two speakers that measure exactly the same, and therefore they will sound different depending on the technology and so on. So I just found it very exciting that you were actually able to do this. This is something crazy that I don't think many manufacturers. I've hinted at this design to a few that are capable, that have the machinery, and these are big companies, and they just looked at me like, yeah, why would we do that?
Yeah, no. Yeah. The moment the moment for me in that first meeting where I brought the prototypes, we had listened a little while. We had some like reverse polarity issues that we had to like fix. I could not believe you, like less than 0.0 milliseconds, you were like, they're out of phase. Like I could not believe like how well you picked up on that fast. Rewired one, rewired the other. I'm like sweating. I'm like, oh my God, he hates them. And then you're like, one of your first responses was, we could sell these. Like this is a product.
Yeah.
And I knew it was like that moment. I was like, oh my God, 2 years was not wasted. We have something here. And
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty sensitive to polarity. So that
it
was
was
pretty,
wild.
when I first heard it, when he first hooked it up, we had polarity issues,
Mm-hmm.
and I was immediately like, oh no, poor guy, just send him back with this shit speaker.
Oh my god.
No, but no, we hooked it up and solved the polarity issue, and then that's when I was like, wow. In fact, I invited one of my partners here to come and hear it. He's an industry designer, so I wanted a little bit of hint or support from him in terms of how we can get the industry design to
great
look
guy.
better. But actually, a lot of the comments said actually the speakers look great as it is, and I was like very surprised because it is a prototype. It's a 3D printed prototype. Actually, the speaker that the final look will look somewhat like this, right? Like you're seeing on the screen right now, and the whole idea is to actually manufacture this from US, like your own company manufacturer.
So I mean, that's a great segue. We covered a lot so far, right? Which is like kind of how we got here, some of the technology we're using. If I could just back up just a little bit. The journey the personal journey has been incredible, right? Being able to work with Jay and have him, anybody who knows him or has watched his videos knows that like, you're not pulling your punches. You know what I mean? Like when something doesn't work, you're not going to pull me, take me down a rabbit hole just to soothe me or like my needs, right? Like we're in this to bring something to market that consumers are going to love. And that has really not been done in a very long time.
Absolutely, man. If I'm going to put my name on something, it's got to be right.
Good. It's got to be good.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's got to be wonderful and unique. And so, I thought this was, again, like big credits to you, because when you first approached, I mean, I have to really give it to you, because like the first time you came to me, you were less than knowledgeable about audio measurements and all the factors that go into a loudspeaker design. Next thing I know, he knows more about this design than I do, and he knows more about the lens than I do, and you've done your research. You spend nights researching this stuff, so big props to you, man.
Thank you so much. I come from, my background is business development, and I come from business development from a perspective of consumer experience. And so when we would, talk to clients or customers, we would always ask, okay, like if they defined a process or a situation where like, this is how we do things, or this is what we do, it's always why. There's always like, okay, well, how does the consumer interact with that? Like, why do you do it that way? And not to challenge those customers, right? Or challenge ourselves. It's just to identify the story, like the line between what you do and how the consumers are interacting with it.
Yeah.
It's just, we have to understand that. And so when you kind of like threw down that challenge, I had to look at this whole, or the team had to look at this whole system and go, well, how is this going to help the consumer? Like, what is this going to offer a consumer that is beyond just the novelty of being able to bring this to market? And trust me, like it's a big, like that's a great differentiator in itself, right?
Absolutely.
Like nobody else has this, but it has to actually sound wonderful. It has to give the audience something they haven't done before or experienced before. And I think that helped shape what Meier Werks is trying to do, which is bridge the gap between heirloom or heritage technology and modern engineering and modern material science. And when we look at the market, we see these heritage products, right? If like you want a horn or a lens or some sort of vintage style product, you're getting a walnut cabinet. It's a box design. It's got thin wall construction. It's got a paper cone. That's it. Like that's the niche you're in.
Yeah.
If you want a modern hi-fi experience, you have a 4-ohm speaker with medium to low sensitivity,
right,
and really, really low distortion, and they're all direct radiating, and they have a bass reflex port.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, what color speaker do I want?
Yeah.
Do I want like X company's color, or do I want the other company's version?
And there's definitely a lot of overlap for sure.
Tons of overlap.
Yeah.
And so we looked at like, and I think what inspired that style of thinking was your take on Andrew Jones and your take on this dual concentric. It's like, if somebody is fulfilling this niche in a way that they have the whole stack of where they've filled out all of they're vertically integrated. They have all the economies of scale set up.
Right.
Like, what kind of resources are we going to need to make a dent there? And could those resources be better put somewhere else?
Exactly. That's exactly, and that's kind of like the mission statement. Like both of us, our goals align, and that's kind of why we're able to work together, right?
Yeah.
Like it's exactly what you said, right? Like, can I make what he's doing cheaper? What Andrew Jones is doing cheaper? No. Can I do it better than this guy who has been doing dual concentric designs for 40, 50 years?
Probably
no,
not. Yeah.
Absolutely not. And he has worked with many different brands creating dual concentric designs, it's not.
He's a legend.
Yeah, he's a legend. So I'm like, I'm not gonna compete with that. There's no need to.
Yeah,
it's not about
exactly.
like ego. It's about what the market needs, and that's kind of like my thing. It's like the reason I do this. A lot of people are like, oh, he's getting into the speaker business, but the idea of me doing this special project is to fill that niche in the market that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right. We saw that with the CSS Typhons, where I talked about the tilt mechanism. That was not at that price point. You look anywhere, you can barely. I guarantee you cannot find a speaker at that price point with 4 boxes. Right.
Yes.
Top cabinet separate from the bottom, and the top has adjustability vertical.
And look what the market did in response.
So,
after like a year later, you're seeing, without mentioning names, like you're seeing other companies in that value proposition area all of a sudden be like, oh, well, maybe we should start worrying about like time alignment, or maybe we should start worrying about like tilting the drivers forward in these ways. I'm looking right at the speaker right now.
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely to it's a passion project to bring new stuff to the market, and the market will decide. Like I've done with the Typhons, when I brought out the Typhons, a lot of people were like, "Oh, he's gonna review it to death, compare it to other speakers, and basically say the Typhons are better than anything." Yeah, it's my little baby with the CSS guys, right? Yeah. So I like to work with great people like CSS guys, Kerry and Dan. They were great, and actually learn from experts like that. And coming into this, I kind of wanted to do something entirely different that we've never done before. And when you approached me, I gave you Mission Impossible because I wanted to see how serious you were, and you were very serious.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. To circle back to some of the other, points you made earlier, apart from my own personal journey, when, I came to this from day one, right? Even with the two-way design, I came to this from day one being like, I want to enter this industry.
So I have to ask you about that, right?
Yeah.
So for me, this is my life, right? I've chosen that a long time ago, that audio is my life. That's what I do. So it's naturally for me to do insane projects like this. It's a lot of effort, but for me, it's natural. I have to ask you, you have background in business development. What got you to say, hey, I'm going to start a speaker company, and not just any speaker company, something so unique and so hard to achieve?
Yeah. It's a great question. It like all good stories or like kind of like transformative moments in our life, it starts with a few kind of key moments, right? When I was really young, I had an architectural drawing teacher who had a pair of Fisher 1980s Fisher speakers.
Do you remember the model?
I don't. They were white. They had a white 15-inch driver.
Yeah.
All paper cones. I mean, I'm sure if I listened to them today, I'd be like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. But at the time, nothing could have been cooler.
Right.
And I asked that teacher every day, hey, can I take those? Or he was using them as desk legs in the classroom. They were underneath this table.
Yeah.
I was like, can I have those? You're not using them? Like, I just bugged the heck out of this poor guy. And it was the last day of school, and he said, look, if you can take them, I don't know, this would never happen now. He was like, if you can take them, if you can carry them out of here, they're yours. And so I carried, 14-year-old me carried these enormous, to me, proportionally, speakers onto the school bus, and then walked them from the school bus stop back to my house. And that was like my first moment where I got to like set up my own hi-fi and have speakers in my house. And it was a small moment, but it kind of started the spark, right? After college, I built some kit speakers. I was like, oh, I want better sound, but I don't want to spend the money, like broke right out of college. And then a great friend of the family, we were at some event and we were down in the basement, and there was a pair of Infinity RS3Bs laying on their side, but the foam surrounds had all rotted out. They were just in terrible shape, like mildew all over them.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, take them. They're yours. I know you're kind of into speakers. And I brought them home and we rebuilt them, just like new surrounds, new drivers. It was the first time I ever had to learn how to like look at a schematic for the crossover, recap them, put in new resistors and stuff. And so it just, this passion kind of grew and grew as in parallel to my own career, right? Like doing business development. And like all wonderful partners, my fiance at one point just turned to me and said, look, you love this. Why don't you just see what would it take for this to be part of your life, like in a meaningful way? And that was it. Once I got the green light, from my significant other, it's like, all right, well, all hands on deck. And that's when I approached you.
Cool.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, what did you think about those Infinity RS3Bs? Because I have those speakers. I measured them.
So in hindsight being 2020, knowing what I know now, I can see their flaws.
Yeah.
It was the first speaker that I ever heard that made me understand what like fast bass was, or like detailed bass. I think up to that point, I'd only heard, because it's a sealed enclosure, I'd only heard like bass reflex ported designs. I'd only heard like bad subwoofers.
Yeah.
And when I heard that speaker, I was like, oh man, like there's actually information down there that is more about like the room and the environment and the sense of space. And I think that was the first speaker that really got me to understand that they are flawed speakers.
Yeah, when I measured them, I mean, one thing was the notoriously hard impedance load.
Yes.
Like, Jesus.
My amp would go into protection mode all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
It was a long time ago, but don't quote me on it. But I think that speaker dipped down to like 2 ohms.
It must have, because I remember just like anytime we'd have a party. I was living in New York and Brooklyn. It was like New York days. And every time somebody would go over to the stereo and turn it up, it'd go clip and just shut down.
Yeah, you needed a powerhouse for that.
Yeah, I did not have it at the time.
Yeah, what I learned from that was, amplifier capability is real.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I tried multiple different amplifiers because it kept shutting down.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think I was using like a Radio Shack receiver.
Yeah, that thing was shut down.
Bad gear. But
so I gotta ask you again. So I didn't particularly give you a mission of transmission line. Like if I gave you the lens, right, as in make the lens work and do a transmission line bass, I will call myself an asshole. Like that's not mission impossible. That's like mission impossible.
Yeah.
But what? So I have to ask you, like a lot of companies deviate away from transmission line. Like PMC is the only one that I can think of.
Love them, by the way.
And
mad respect for them.
Acoustic Zen, I believe.
Yeah.
There are very few companies that will actually do proper transmission line. And even then, you can never get it perfect.
Yeah, right. Like you've got, how I look at it is like we've got 3 main variables, right? It's like the line length, which is your supporting frequency.
Right.
It's the terminus diameter and the taper rate, which affect your impedance and your output volume and a few other things.
What made you do transmission line instead of a port? Instead of I
think it comes back to like when you laid down that first challenge, I had to face some really hard just truths about what I wanted to accomplish. And I sat down with my like at this point I'd gotten some advisors, I had gotten like a corporate coach. I had a group of people who were going to help me set up this company. And we really looked at like what were our core tenets? Like what did we want to accomplish? What was our value proposition? What was our philosophy? And it came back to like, what can we offer to give the absolute pinnacle of consumer experience in our own niche, right? In our own category. I don't want to create a direct radiating bass reflex cabinet or speaker painted red. And so we looked at the transmission line technology as, okay, it has clear advantages, right? Like it is definitely a progression of this Helmholtz resonating tube thing.
Yeah.
It refines that thinking a little bit. How do we make it our own? And so to your point, companies have rectangular transmission lines.
Yeah.
Because that's the shape of a cabinet.
Yeah.
And so we're like,
It's
okay.
kind of what I expected when you said transmission line the first time too.
That's right. And so we're like, okay, well, we can't do it that way, right? Like that's, if we want to occupy the same space as some of the greats in this industry, we have to innovate on that basic design. We can't just be another box company.
Yeah.
And so we came up with this nested design where you have a cylindrical transmission line, which really helps break up a lot of those standing waves. Look, like anything in engineering, there are pros and cons to every design decision. And so in a box cabinet, a rectangular transmission line is the most optimal use of that space. So like, what do you do with all that extra space? And that's where this like nested speaker within a speaker kind of concept came in. And so in the negative space here, we can put additional drivers. We can put all sorts of unique features that in a
you
rectangular.
Even talked about isobaric.
That's right. So we've got an isobaric configuration, right, where we've got one driver pointing out into the room and put one driver pointing into the transmission line. Because amazing, I have to say, just some quick segue. Your viewers, like I was laughing to the team, just being like, should we like put out a now hiring request to your viewers? Like when they first saw the speaker, they hit on things that we had identified a year and a half ago as being potential issues that we would have to tackle.
Absolutely.
And they like in one video were like, how are you solving this? How are you solving that? What are you doing with this? Like, how are you solving the time alignment?
Questions.
How are you solving the efficiency differential between a horn system and a transmission line system? I was like, amazing. You're hired.
All I hear, go get the money. So I go get it. Hate means I do something right. So I'm a
why we're doing transmission line. I know we kind of like went off on a tangent, but like the reason we're doing transmission line is because it's the right technology for this consumer experience. You have a product that is so off in its own niche that delivers comparable or better performance in those mainstream categories.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I measured these speakers, we'll talk about that in a minute, but like when I measured the transmission line, I was like, yeah, this is tuned very well. And that's one of the benefits. Like you have a 6.5-inch woofer here.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, doing isobaric and, all that kind of stuff to improve the design and the efficiency, but that's for later. But just to give you a reference, 6.5-inch woofer down to like 30 hertz.
Yeah.
Below 30 hertz.
Yeah.
With
Smooth.
The tuning of the transmission. Absolutely insane. That's not a performance you can get with one woofer.
No.
That's only possible because of the transmission line. I want to talk to you about AI. Can we talk about AI for a minute?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So, what I found interesting with you is that you used AI as a tool in ways that I haven't seen speaker designers outside of myself use it.
Yeah.
But you use it in a much more precise way than I do. For me, like I ask some challenging questions to AI, and sometimes they spit out answers, and sometimes you have to back them into a corner.
You do.
To get an actual answer that's worthwhile getting.
Beat it out of them.
Otherwise, you got to beat it out of them. That's one thing about AI. I feel like sometimes, me actually doing the research takes a shorter amount of time, like reading the white paper of some company or something like that, than actually working with AI and backing into a corner so it gives me an answer that's precise, right? So I have to ask you, because I know that you ask AI and work with ChatGPT all the time. And definitely some of that contributed to the design of the speaker.
Absolutely, yeah.
So can you touch a little bit upon that? Do you see the AI as a future thing, a tool to a speaker design?
Yeah. So it's such a big question, right?
Yeah.
And so how in the very beginning, right, of this project, AI was really becoming much more prevalent, right? Like everybody was using it, everybody's talking about it, everybody's kind of like augmenting themselves with it. But as a business developer, I'm thinking, how do we integrate? Like, what does the future of manufacturing look like in this category? Like, how are companies of the future going to optimize their manufacturing process, their design process, their testing, research and development, all of those categories? How are they going to augment themselves with this technology? And so just like everything, I'm thinking about how to be the best business version of that category. And so it was just a perfect storm. We had Anthropic's compute control come out, which allows you to have AI take control over your computer, which can be really scary at times, right? Like all of a sudden, like your mouse is moving and like things are getting clicked. You had the advent of, some frontier models like Llama going public, like open source.
Yeah.
And so being able to run local models that we design, that we create our whole like information stack, and then say, okay, I'm going to have all of my internal documents, all of the white papers that I'm drawing on and have developed in-house be part of our own foundation model that can then teach our own designers, hey, here's something you might not have thought about before. Or, hey, I'm gonna go like have this thing go right into COMSOL multiphysics and give me simulation setup advice and say, hey, set up the simulation maybe a little bit differently, or go at it from this angle, and then have compute control actually be able to take autonomy and then make those changes. I mean, we're right on this, like a very incredible, utopian version of like how anybody can, with the right knowledge and the right tools and the right resources and the right community, get a research and development company or manufacturing company up and running.
Would you say AI in this case, used as a tool, is a shortcut to problem solving?
I don't know about like shortcut implies that maybe there's like reduced value. I would only say like you're increasing value, right? You're just increasing your output potential,
efficiency.
Completely, changing. It has completely changed the way every investor that we brought in to talk to, every partner that we brought in, when they see how we're using AI in the design development, and really it's really like refinement. It's like, okay, we take the results from COMSOL and then we move them into Fusion 360, and we say, okay, well, how would you optimize these shapes to best perform in the simulation, right? Like it's just like context setups.
Right.
And now with NVIDIA's startup program, where they're essentially, from our stage saying, here are the resources you need, here's the technology that we can offer. It just like, I don't want to toot their horn, more than anybody else, because everybody's trying, but like they really have pulled ahead in just every possible way, from like the consumer hardware to their own internal models to how they're partnering with startups and much larger businesses, to just they've become an amazing resource. So it is like anybody who's shy or worried about AI, or thinks that like it's like a superficial technology in this category, I challenge you, use it.
I think like one thing that I kind of think a lot of consumers can easily do is, I asked the question, how many of you actually know how to read a frequency graph and impedance graph? And a lot of people don't. Easy way is like, for example, you see a graph or that I present or a reviewer presents, right? And you know Aaron from Aaron's Audio Corner, he does a great job of explaining the measurements. But let's say you see a measurement, it's posted, the reviewer doesn't really explain much of it. I'm guilty of that sometimes because of the time length of the video. But you look at the graph and you go, oh, there's a dip around 2 kilohertz to 4 kilohertz. What does that mean, right? You ask AI, it pops it out. And it tells you what that means. And you can really back into the corner and ask, what does that really mean in a real life situation, listening situation with this music, that music. And I find it so intriguing how it can help in the aid of you learning faster. And I think that's what I mean by a shortcut. Like before, you would have to go search a book, even online, right? You have to search the material to find it. Sometimes you're reading it, you're like, oh, this is not the right one. Next material, right? And this is how you usually learn. But with AI, you can get to where you want, or information you want to learn real quickly. It
is definitely, like, without this turning into like an AI podcast, but like it is definitely the, if we looked at the internet age as the moment that everybody got access to the world's knowledge as like being the defining feature of internet, I think that AI is the delivery of that information. It's like the era of how we actually utilize
Yeah.
that unbelievable amount of data to take action. And
optimization when it comes to manufacturing, right?
Yeah. No, it's what I have learned personally, just as an individual, from AI, and what this company has developed in terms of AI tools is staggering. Like 5 years ago, we'd be still in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Like this would not be what it is.
No.
Wouldn't even be possible.
We would have put the first lens, the first layer, the first,
Yeah.
Anyways, so let's go over some of the questions.
Yeah, sure,
I
sure.
really like your response on the AI. I was really curious.
Sure.
But let's go over some of the questions here.
Yeah.
And give it to me, and I'll ask. Why do you have so many?
I printed all of them. They were all really good comments, and I especially like the ones that said,
Okay.
"It's the best looking speaker in the world."
I said I tell this guy to print out criticisms, hard criticisms to answer, and he prints out all the compliments.
All the comments that say this is the best thing ever.
Who is that from?
No, nobody. Don't worry about it. It's like my dad or something.
Good job, son.
That's right.
All right, first question. Well, it's not a question, but this comes from Tyler Hackman6832. He says, "Sell the horns for us DIY
yes,
folks,
yeah.
and you'll always be busy." What do you have to say about that? A lot of people, every time I do design work or whatever, it was the same thing with CSS, but no, that's a DIY kit company. But I thought it was okay, let me back here a bit. When I get the CSS typhons out, right? A lot of people were like, "Oh, is this gonna be available in a DIY kit form?" And I thought that was because CSS is majority a DIY kit company, and that's how they started. I didn't think I was gonna get these kind of responses with this speaker.
Yeah.
I mean, do you really want to DIY this?
Yeah, I would not recommend it.
You're gonna be pulling your hair. It could be
yeah.
a hard ass DIY project.
So
to do.
this horn is going to be cast.
Yeah.
Right. So we're using 3D printed and additive manufacturing in a very limited way.
Yeah.
And a really strategic way. Right. Like it's a great technology, but it's the cost benefit really needs to be there. Like it has to give us something more than traditional manufacturing gives us. And so, like, look, we'll have a service department.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to have service parts. If somebody needs to order a new horn or a new lens or a new assembly,
Yeah.
that'll be an option for those people. Will we sell it as like a kit? Probably not.
I gotta talk about the kit for a minute, right? As a business model, a lot of people think kit because they want the kit so that they think they're getting better value, and they do with certain simple designs. For example, CSS flat pack, GR Research flat pack. You put it's a rectangular box. You put it together. You glue it. Easy. Put the tweeters in already drilled in for you. Routed out for you. That's easy, and that's how they save cost.
Yeah.
When it comes to anything more complicated than that, even the CSS, we looked into the CSS being a kit, because we know we're gonna sell it. It's gonna sell if you put that into a kit.
Yeah.
The problem is because of the tilt mechanism and because of the complexness of the shape of the top module and the bottom module, because it's not 4 rectangles, right? It's like it's pentagon. I don't know, but you know what I mean. So for someone to design that along with the crossovers for a 3-way, it's a big DIY project. And even if we could make it into a DIY kit, it would still cost just as much.
Yeah.
You're not saving that much money.
No.
And so
like this company's tenet is like
the point-
efficiency of value.
the point
so
of me bringing this up is like, if you see something complex like this, I mean, look at the DIY kits in the market. None of them are complex.
Yeah.
As the more complex it gets, the harder it is to make flat packs and instructions and more work towards actually getting the DIY kit built.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as designing a product.
I can see, like, and this is totally off on a tangent, like don't hold me to this, but like I can see a future where, like, if I were to retire a product,
Yeah.
or like, hey, we're no longer manufacturing this, I might be like, hey, here are all the models for it. If you
What do
want
you
to,
mean?
if you want to build your own, like,
Like
here are all the files.
All the files.
I'll put I'll release the files, and
Yeah,
like,
I
you want to
mean-
build it at home, go for it.
Absolutely.
know?
Now, when I say DIY, I'm specifically talking about DIY kits here, right?
Yeah.
If he's making it available for everyone and you are an experienced builder,
Yeah.
then you could.
Yeah.
But that's a different story. But you still won't be saving that much money.
Yeah, I would also love, like, I think like there's a version of this, like when I look at like companies that really inspire me,
Yeah.
they have great relationships with their customer. They bring them to the factories and stuff. And like, you can come to the factory in Connecticut and, if you want to be part of the design journey, or if you want to do something really interesting, like we want to be the company that allows that to happen. We're doing small volume, like this is going to be a small volume product.
Yeah.
Like we want to have fun with it, so.
Absolutely. All right. Oh, here's another positive one by Snapper X3. Looks very cool, Jay. Looking forward to seeing the final product. Me too.
Yeah,
me too.
That's right.
Harmon-DX says, whoa, I would keep the steampunk look.
Steampunk, yeah, I saw that one. I was like, steampunk, really? I mean, I guess maybe
Add
the
some
lens
pipes.
part. Yeah.
Add some pipes to the
just
side.
like brass
I
coming
mean,
out the
I kind of
side.
see that, but
Yeah,
that would
maybe.
be a very specific look, right?
Yeah, we need like a steam engine.
Yeah, steam engine. I there's speakers out there like that, and they could be attractive.
It could.
Add some lights.
Yeah.
Add some.
I mean, the lens, the
Einstein
lens
lights,
is like
Edison lights.
it's a love it if it's a love it or you hate it kind of thing. Like it is what it is, but
I mean, the lens is beautiful,
so
beautiful
cool
to
looking.
look at.
It's so beautiful,
especially
yeah.
It's 3D printed, but imagine in the actual materials.
Yes, these will be a specific type of metal.
Yeah,
Can't tell you yet what they are.
Yeah.
But like the really like detailed renders, like you can just tell like, oh my god. And when you one thing like I'd love for you to show your audience at some point, but like if you kind of like line yourself up with this stack here, each one of the inside diameters actually follows a exponential profile that lines up with the sum of the exponential profile of the horn. And so we did that so that as the wave front exits the front of the horn, it has the smoothest transition to each of the inside diameters. And you can see the profile if you come to the side, like you see this exponential curve. And like
only nerds like you will find that interesting.
It's so beautiful. It's so cool.
It is.
I promise.
It
it's
is
really cool.
Man, I told you. Next one, Zimu 1. Jay, this is the most beautiful looking speaker I have ever seen. Congrats on such an astonishing project. Man, Congrats, Bennett.
Yeah.
But criticisms, man. Criticisms.
All right, I'm sorry.
Yes, you had one job. Anyways, I have to be hard on him. Now this one's good. That's how Basstronics. That's how the inside of my car audio subwoofer enclosure looks like.
Yeah. No, honestly, I think I saw one. I memorized one. They were like, I guess Bose was right all along.
Yeah.
And I thought that kind of was the perfect comment.
Yeah.
Because if we think of our company as like the our job is to just kind of like get past the torch and carry this technology forward in a lot of ways, and like say what you want about Bose. And I understand like there's some drama recently with them acquiring a specific company.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of hate on their designs. But I think if you were to look at, like, imagine if Bose had created a speaker that used the absolute best crossover components, the absolute best cabinet material, and the absolute best drivers, if we'd still look at them the same way. Like, are the critics of Bose critics because of their engineering, or are they critics because of the materials?
I think it's a lot of the criticism. The longer the company has been around, and they start making and branching off to consumerism, Bluetooth speakers and so on, they get criticisms from audiophiles.
Start getting greedy,
right? Yeah, exactly. And I get all that, right? But I've had some Bose speakers that were very excellent.
They had some great engineers.
Yeah, they had some great engineers. They had made a lot of progress in audio, so we have to give them that.
I agree.
All right, next. One. Man, I hope your project succeeds and does well. Your youthful enthusiasm is definitely a big factor in that. I want to see new speaker designs that go beyond what we've been accustomed to. So looking forward to it. Yeah, if you think my youth enthusiasm is a big factor, look at this guy. I've done jack compared to what he's done with this.
No, you're selling yourself short. Definitely.
Audio Winter, incredible. This is just your next chapter of your journey. Can't wait until the release. Yeah, I just want a pair. That's when it's done. That's my next chapter. Is I want a pair. Charles Mann Schmidt 7587. I hope I said that correctly. Altec Lansing was never in charge of JBL. Jim Lansing left the former company to start JBL. The two companies remain separate. Absolutely correct. I get confused, and I made that mistake in the video. Thanks for correcting me. Next, Robert Mayer 7664. That's great to see someone doing something beyond conventional with keeping ordinary people in mind. I think that's kind of what you touched upon in this podcast.
Yeah.
Are any of these criticisms?
Yeah, so I mean, I could just tell, like, I'd love to give the person a shout out, but like a bunch of people identified things that we had known about since day one.
Okay, let's talk about those because these are all compliments, man.
Yeah, I didn't do that on purpose, I swear. I just printed out the comments. That's all I did. I just printed them out.
All right.
So some of the key concerns, right? Mm-hmm. We'll start with like the energy differential, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're on different ends of the efficiency spectrum.
Yeah.
So transmission lines and horns, right? Horn, we've got an exponential profile or a widening profile, right? There are different profiles of horns.
Yeah.
And transmission lines traditionally are tapered.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're really doing different things on the efficiency side. And so the way we are planning to handle this is with an isobaric configuration.
Yeah.
Which, as far as I know, has not been done.
Quickly, let's explain what isobaric means.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Some people may not know.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this configuration, like if you were to imagine this driver is moving out, right? There's another driver, magnet to magnet. And you can have it in different configurations. Like you can have cone to magnet or cone to cone, however you want to, do your configuration. But in this configuration, we have magnet to magnet. And so as this driver moves out, this driver is moving back.
Yeah.
And so they are moving together in this push-pull configuration. Right. Essentially, it's not a doubling of efficiency.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect system, right? There's resistance and heat loss and all sorts of stuff, but it does increase your efficiency
enough.
Enough.
Yeah, enough
and
for our purpose.
And so like what the coupling chamber, like what the volumes are, the reason it probably hasn't been done up to this point, right? And like we may be talking too much about how the sausage is made, right? But is because there are big pressure differentials, right? So like your static air pressure out here versus the coupling chamber versus the transmission line. If you have three different pressure differentials, you can get into problems of
many different problems
of nonlinearity, right? Like distortion. And so making sure that the coupling chamber is perfectly designed so that you don't have big differentials will be
the challenge.
Will be crucial. But
yeah,
I think it's totally doable, and it's just gonna be freaking awesome. Like I'm so excited. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, we need to have like a speaker cut in half at the show or something so people can see inside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because this nested cabinet, right? Because we're doing a cylindrical transmission line, there's so much negative space in here that can be used for all sorts of activities, like other drivers.
Yeah, activities like dancing.
Dancing that's right. Inside. Build a bunk bed. Oh.
All right. So what's some other criticisms?
Yes. So the next question was time, right? Like timing, and that's something we have known about for a while.
Yeah.
But we have a solution, and I don't think we're really prepared to give
when you say
all the details.
When you say timing, let's back up here and explain. Yeah. Timing between the mechanical alignment of the compression driver, because compression driver is all the way back there. Yep, and then it's traveling through the horn, escaping through this lens.
That's right.
And then the woofer's here. Yeah. So obviously, there's a delay in that sound traveling all the way to your ears compared to a woofer that is much in close proximity to the listener.
Yeah.
So it's misaligned in terms of timing.
Yeah. And like it's definitely like.
But there's ways to resolve that.
There are ways to resolve it. There are ways we are going to resolve it, right? Because timing and phase are really important to a high resolution system, right? If you want to perform at the level we want to perform at, they have to be in time. They have to be aligned in phase. And like acoustic centers are difficult to really nail down, right? Yeah. So like the plane of the baffle is not the acoustic center of the woofer.
Yeah.
The woofers, larger the woofers tend to be a little bit further back. and the acoustic center of a horn system is not at the diaphragm. It's slightly ahead, sometimes in the horn, in the middle, back
So you
middle
have to
of the
align
horn.
the voice coils.
That's right.
But yeah, I did the measurements with Bennett here and as well as the other nights. Timing, calculating the time difference between the horn, the compression driver, and the woofer. So we got a figure, and so we'll be able to work that out fairly easily.
Yeah, we've got a cool solution.
Yeah, we got a cool solution, but we won't share that just yet.
No.
We still gotta
keep people coming back for more.
Yeah, keep it coming for more.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about a lot on my trip up here, right?
Yeah.
And I think like I had been thinking about like why this is such a weird tangent, but like you can cut this out if you want. But like
nothing's being cut.
Okay. So I was thinking about like art. Nobody who cares what I think this sounds like, right? At the end of the day, they are paying any company for their technique, right? Like what they're willing to sacrifice for their understanding of performance increases.
Yeah.
And so I think what this package offers is a path to a really high performing speaker that not any other company has taken, right? Like, it's just so, you get that really high energy, very effortless, like mid-range and upper mid-range from, the horn.
Yeah.
And that incredibly textured, dynamic, nuanced bass of a transmission line. And then the airiness and like when we first set up the prototypes, the imaging and soundstage, it just blew at least me, right? It just completely blew me away.
Yeah.
And
I have to say, yes, the imaging was a little bit fuzzy because of the time alignment that we haven't corrected yet in the prototype. But honestly, one thing that I have to say is, man, the soundstage depth is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Like I haven't heard depth like that ever.
Yeah. And like
now
especially
I can say this because it's a prototype.
Yeah.
Especially
Especially in like the regions that are like dialed in, like etched out of marble.
Yeah.
It really, really defined. It's just been such an amazing project, and we've covered so much. I'm so grateful to like your community. We were joking a little bit, but like the overwhelming response has been positive. And
so is that the only negatives?
It was yes, there was one more. One more.
Yeah.
There was a question about why go cylindrical on the transmission line.
I think you already answered that.
I did. I answered most of these directly to the people in the comments.
Yeah.
We want to be a company that's like really transparent, that you have a direct line, like go onto our website.
Yeah.
There's a contact us.
I mean, that's
that
the
goes,
way, right?
That goes to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not like a secretary or something. It goes directly to me, and I will answer your questions.
Yeah, that's the way, right? Like you got to take feedback from the consumers and apply where possible.
Yeah. Like why would we want to put something out that nobody likes?
Well, I don't know. I see a lot of companies where it's so obvious that, if they do this one thing, they would sell a lot more because people are demanding that.
Yeah.
And they just seem to put a blind eye towards it. And I'm not talking about any specific company, but I've seen a lot of companies miss that kind of communication with the consumer world.
I think I have an idea of why that might happen, and like another tangent, but
Yeah, go ahead. That's what podcasts are for.
Yeah, I see this industry, like why we came after like HiFi in general, and we haven't unveiled all the segments we're going after, right? Like speaker manufacturing is one, but we have 3 other segments that we're addressing.
I think I know what you're talking about, but you're not yet.
Yeah, we can't discuss the second one. Research and development is going to be a segment that we're addressing, and then all I can say about the third one is it's called analog signal processing. And that's all I can talk about that one. And then there's a second category that I cannot even talk about. And that's not because like we have some secret sauce that we're trying to protect or like where we want to be mysterious. It's just we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. Like we want to make sure it's right before we
it's
set
all
expectations.
Exciting, but we want to make sure it works before we.
We're not like hiding like missile silo secrets or anything. Like it's nothing that dramatic. But the reason I think a lot of these companies make the decisions they make is because when you look at the industry, every single manufacturer is eating off of this plate, this same plate, and it's economy of scale.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you were to go to a driver manufacturer and say, hey, I want you to make me a completely custom driver. It uses a completely custom basket, a completely custom cone, a completely custom surround, a completely custom voice coil. You name every component and you want it custom, they're going to be like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
They have, and for good reason, like they have done a cost benefit analysis of like what will make them profitable.
Absolutely.
And they will not diverge from that. But that by its nature forces all of these manufacturers into these little categories, right? Like when a manufacturer says to a driver manufacturer, hey, I want to do something really revolutionary.
I know all about this.
Exactly.
I run into the same problems, right?
Yeah.
So anytime we do design work and, I have a unique idea, that's detrimental to the company.
Yes.
Because the company is like, okay, supplier, can you make this small change? I'm talking about like small change. They'll be like, oh, the price goes up double.
Yeah.
Anything significant change, quadruple, right? So the cost goes up dramatically, even if they're willing to do it.
Yeah.
And the minimum order, right? There's a big minimum order. So when people look at speakers, right, and see unique designs, and they go, "Oh, that's so overpriced," right? You gotta think about those things, right?
Yeah.
When a company buys or gets their supplier to do it, even in-house development, it's a lot of money up front.
Yeah.
Including the minimum order, because nobody's doing it for 2 pairs.
No.
Right? You might do that in your DIY garage, but this is a company. So a lot of minimum order goes in. So a lot of commitment, a lot of risk involved. And at the end of the tunnel, you hope that you get a product that is unique and functional and, people love, and you sell a ton of it. So people have to be mindful of that when they see the price point of something that is truly unique.
Yeah.
I see a lot of comments where people say it's too expensive. And it's fine. It's the price point is high, but when they say that it's too expensive, they have to realize that it's not. No one's ripping you off. It's the cost that's involved in building something unique.
And I think that is like the challenge. Like I didn't want to come into this. Like there are a lot of manufacturers that do unique things that are like vanity products. Yeah, and they're very expensive.
Absolutely.
That's also a category that's well defined. I don't want to be in that either. I want to bring the goal of this company is to bring the value proposition of these economies of scale that are established in other companies, but in a company that doesn't have that same category or isn't part of that same category. And so, and like I can hear people in the comments being like, well, what makes him think he can do that? Or like, how is that even possible? If it was so easy, why wouldn't they do it? It's because it is so much more appealing to outsource those resources to other suppliers who have already made those upfront commitments.
Absolutely.
And so, look,
and have the facilities.
We're not looking to get our payout in 2 years. Like we want to occupy the space in this market for the next 20, 30 years. We want to be a major player, and that comes from servicing each one of these categories of the market that we talked about. Like we have to vertically integrate. We have to bring all of this manufacturing in-house. We have to control the process.
So you're talking about a full-fledged actual manufacturing company, right?
That's right. So
there's a difference. In the audio world, when I go to factory tours and stuff like that, a lot of times it's out of like an office, right? It's, or a small building. And when I go there, there is not much manufacturing things happening. There's CNC machines for the cabinet, for example.
Some prototyping.
If they make their own cabinets, that is. Some prototypes. But if you go to a company like Paradigm or Axiom Audio, right? They have an anechoic chamber for R&D and measurements. They have a blind listening room for just that. And then on top of that, you go to the other open area, and they have like multiple CNC machines for cutting wood, assembly, a painting booth.
You just named some of my heroes there. Like,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Like they have the
doing
full
it right.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, if you want to build your own drivers, now I'm not sure if Axiom Audio or Paradigm builds their own
Focal,
drivers.
you could use as an example.
Bowers
and Wilkins.
Exactly, because I haven't seen that part of the facility if they do have that. But from the tours I've seen, like, it's a whole nother facility. So it's not like you do everything in one building like Axiom Audio.
Yeah.
It's a huge ass building in Muskoka. You walk into one area and it's like a CNC machine, 3D printing, bunch of machines, and then there's an assembly line, and then this is a whole operation. And to your point, it's much easier for you to be like, yeah, I'm not gonna invest in a whole property, especially in Canada, whole property, to build woofers that may or may not sell.
And I don't want to bully those companies either, like the companies that choose not to do that. Like a lot of people are subject to their own board of directors, their own company policies, like the risk of being not afraid, but like cautious of risk is a prevalent strategy in business. Absolutely. And like I totally, it's valid. And if that's their model, I 100% agree.
What I'm saying is, I'm not knocking on any of those companies.
Yeah, same.
What I'm saying is that those companies, right, are making a more economical and good risk management. Like you have to look at Paradigm, Axiom Audio. These are companies that's been around for generations. Like they didn't have those facilities day one.
They didn't,
right? So people have to be mindful of that. Same thing with Sonos Faber, all these, Macintosh. They have the facility to do the measurements, do the assembly, the R&D, and each kind of step requires a whole ass facility.
That's right.
It's a lot of cost involved. And for a small company, startup company, that's a big, ambitious thing. And that's what you're trying to do.
It is. Yeah. And obviously not all in day one, right? Like we have a multi-phased plan to roll out, right? Speaker manufacturing is our first part of that. Yeah. Because it's lower volume. It's like a test bed. It's by its nature is a test platform for other technologies that we might want to roll out. Yeah. And we're scaling up. We're manufacturing in Connecticut, in the United States. We've got great partners, both on the governmental side as well as on the manufacturing side. It was just really amazing, passionate people. Actually, right before this podcast was on a call about it. Yeah.
You have, from my understanding, a great facility already in talks, right?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
you're gonna need like CNC machines and
22,000 square feet.
Yeah. How much are those like CNC machines that you're looking at?
$500,000. I mean, some of these, right? Like a good 5-axis. Yeah. Like good 5-axis machine. I mean, this is a serious endeavor. Yeah. I mean, look, everything has to be scaled. We have to be realistic. Any time you do something this ambitious with this many people, the more people are involved, the more diluted that core, like razor sharp vision has to become.
Absolutely.
And that's why picking really good people, like partnering with you and partnering with this other gentleman, is so important, because you just have to bring in the right people who want to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And the reason I say that is, this is a staged rollout. And so we can't do everything all at once. What we're delivering with our minimum viable product here is the best performance we can possibly deliver, which is on par with the offerings of companies that are just much larger. And I think that's an amazing accomplishment. And I'm so proud of everybody involved in that. But we have like you said, we have really ambitious plans in the future. And
I think people like me, lazy ass like me, and people that have not much time on their hands to partner up with you, right? I think a lot of it speaks to your energy level and your commitment to this. Like I said to my other partner that got to listen to these speakers, he was like flabbergasted. He was like, "Man, Jay, that sounds freaking amazing, and it's a prototype. Man, you guys have something there." And I said, and he's like, "How did you find this guy?" I said, "Well, he kind of found me, and actually, in the beginning, I really believed in him, right? Because I didn't have a prototype, I didn't have a picture. I had
felt
nothing.
that, man. I really
had
did.
Nothing
I felt
on
that.
my hands. I had nothing that was shown to me that I can do this. But I thought, he looks crazy enough, right?"
I really did feel that. There were so many nights, like all-nighters, working with the group in Connecticut and being like, I cannot believe he's waiting this long for this prototype. We're like,
I can wait.
a year and a half in, and like I haven't shown him anything.
I expected you to come back like 3 years later with something.
It was,
but
it was awesome.
Going back to it. So that's again, it just kind of shows the long process and like some of the back kind of ends to a project like this
Yeah.
that some people may not know about. They see a speaker, they're like, it's a speaker.
Yeah, cool.
Woo,
Yeah.
cool.
It is,
but it's a very complex process,
it is,
right?
yeah.
Anytime you want to make something unique. So I want to ask you, where are we at now in terms of the stage? Like, how long do consumers have to wait if they want to buy a pair, right? How far are we down that road? And what's left?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a great question. So like the reason I think like I as a business owner and Meier Werks as a company want to engage with the audio community is because we need to understand what the interest is, right? And we can take this to investors, we can take this to partners and say, hey, look, these people are interested in this. They're ready to, either they're potential buyers, or we've got, distributors or retailers in line. And so our rollout is conservatively second half of 2025. I think it's going to be tough, but I think we can do it. Like I said, the team's pretty much fully assembled. We got our first round of funding, which gave us some really needed machinery purchases. We just talked about like what CNC machining can cost. And look, we're not ready to buy a $500,000 CNC machine, but the machinery we are purchasing is going to be able to give us every single individual component in the speaker, production, and have it be production ready. And the partner that we're working with is doing manufacturing surveys, adhesive survey. I mean, just every component, subcomponent, how they interact, how they'll last long. People sometimes I think nobody really knows what goes into some of this stuff unless you've been through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like everything down to like, okay, we want to put a gasket here.
Yeah.
To damp the vibrations between these two components. Well, does that gasket break down in 2 years?
Exactly.
Does it cause some sort of like galvanic corrosion between the aluminum and the other component? Do you have to anodize it or paint it? Is it reactive if it were exposed to a chemical? Like, could somebody get hurt? Like all of these things
Does
have to
the
be.
lens flex with weather?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I mean,
Well, it doesn't.
And that's a gasket, right? That's like just a gasket.
It doesn't so far because
Yeah, it doesn't so
it's
far.
winter here in Canada and it's cold as hell. But it hasn't.
No, we've heard horror stories, right? Like people will make a speaker or make a product and they use the wrong adhesive and it got hot and the whole thing explodes.
Dude, and I'm not talking about even products that's selling in the market. Not selling in the market, right?
Yeah.
Not prototypes. I'm talking about actual products that are in the market that's currently on sale.
Yeah.
I've had times where I had to return the products, never to be seen again or reviewed ever again, because they would come in and it has nothing to do with the sound. It's just something's wrong with the finish. Canadian winter, summer, it's really hot as well. That's the thing people don't know about. It's like summer in Canada gets pretty hot, like pretty humid and hot. So like I've had times where like the wood panels would flex, and I would have times where like it like broke apart from the adhesive and the veneering comes off, and also like at times where in certain designs where some like the veneer finish would start like getting like these white washed finishes from like damage from the weather. It's really weird. Even headphones, right? I had headphones that warped to the side like this, and all I did was leave it out.
Thermal expansion, like adhesive compatibility, it's a big deal. And not to say that like these are challenges that we're not prepared or structured to handle. That's
why we have the part.
I hesitate, right? Because like a lot of you just hear horror stories with especially startups, like that category. It's just like somehow just like they just overpromise, underdeliver on every. Like no matter what it is. Like I can't tell you how many like Kickstarter horror stories there are, right? Like it's just people being like, pre-order and we'll have something in a month. And it's like 10 years later and it hasn't come out. And so look, we're learning, and we have learned from those bad examples. We want to underpromise and overdeliver, and we have everything in line to deliver later this year. this speaker.
Super exciting.
Yeah.
Super exciting.
Yeah. I'm excited too. I really am.
So will I have a pair here by the end of 2025?
Oh my God! Absolutely. So you're going to have a
finished pair.
You will have a production prototype, right? Which is the adhesives we're going to use, the materials, the finish, everything that will be used in the manufacturing version will be in the production prototype.
Cool.
And so you will have that actually much sooner than the end of 2025. But
awesome.
Yeah.
So excited.
Yeah.
So anything else that you want to add to this podcast? I mean, I think I've covered most bases on stuff that I want answered.
I mean, I joked a little bit about like, hey, like we should be giving your community jobs, but like if you're in the field, like if this is something you're passionate about, if you're in the Connecticut, New York, New Jersey area, and you want to be part of a company and a community that's building something with purpose that is so unique, reach out. You know what I mean? Contact us, go on the website. Like I said, I get that email directly. If you're a distributor, if you're a retailer, reach out. Like we want partners. We're not guarded. You know what I mean? Like I said even before, like when a product goes out of production, like, oh, we'll just upload the files, like build it yourself. Like we want to foster
because you're trying to make
community.
This company an international company too, right?
That's
you
right.
want to come out boom and go international, not just in North America.
That's right.
So yeah, if you're a distributor or a dealer or someone interested in carrying the brand when it comes out in the future, his contacts will be available in the comments below, in the description below as well. So feel free to reach out and chat.
And thank you guys so much. Like, thank you everybody who's been involved, whether you're watching this video and you know me personally, or if you're a viewer, if you're new to Jay's channel, just thank you for the support. It means the world. It's been overwhelming, really great.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my podcast. Thank you for joining today as guest, and I think a lot of the conversations were productive and
it was fun.
Yeah,
really cool.
We'll do it again. Yeah. All right, this was Jay, One Bit Podcast.